Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Kayla Lords.
John Brownstone.
Of Loving BDSM. Back with another one of our first time stories. This is the first time we went through this thing.
Yeah.
This time we're talking about our first disagreement. Yes, they happen in DS relationships. This topic was actually chosen by our patrons on Patreon, patreon.com/Kayla Lords. So yeah, we're gonna talk about our first argument ever.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Fun times.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so in planning this topic, I actually had to say, do you remember our first argument?
Yeah.
I remember arguing the first time, and I remember how I felt, but thankfully, we're at a point in our relationship, I'm not holding on to the old hurts and resentments like I did in past relationships.
Yeah.
So I'm not remembering exactly what it was, but you remember it a little bit better than I do. What do you recall of our first arguments?
It was over money.
Most of our arguments are.
Yeah. We may be DS, but we are not exempt from the occasional disagreement.
Yes, they are very normal in any relationship, even a power exchange. We did an entire podcast episode on disagreements in DS relationships. I'll link to it below in case this is a new concept to you. So what I find funny about it was the first argument we ever had was very soon after we moved in together.
Yes.
So we met very late 2012. We got to know each other 2013. We moved in together June 2014.
Correct. And
in all the time that we were together in a long distance relationship, up until June of 2014, we had never argued.
No.
I'm sure there were moments I kind of went, I don't really agree with that, but it never rose to the level of I'm going to openly disagree with you.
It never bubbled to the surface, and I don't remember the specifics of what it was that we argued about.
I think we were trying to figure out how to pay for something.
And I will say, I know where a lot of that came from on my end. I had come out of a relationship where someone just spent willy-nilly. And, where we could have been saving a lot of money, we weren't because it was just, it flowed like water.
I remember now.
Okay.
It was about grocery shopping. And how much we spent on groceries. And here's why I remember that. You're talking about why you were so sensitive to money being spent needlessly. No, neither of us is saying that groceries is money spent needlessly. No. But I came from the opposite situation where in my previous relationship, in my marriage, we never had enough money. And I was the sole income earner in that relationship. And I've never been food insecure in my life. The one thing I grew up very poor as a kid, and the one thing my parents always had, though, was food. Even if we had to grow it ourselves, we always had plenty to eat. We might not have anything else. There was food. But for me to feel secure, even at my poorest level as an adult, there needed to be food in the fridge. And if my sort of idea of what was, quote, enough wasn't there, I was panicking. So anytime there was enough money to do it, if I had to choose between I want to fill the freezer and fridge, but we can go without buying some other what I would consider a non-essential, I was willing to do it. Well, when we moved in together, money was tight. I was just starting my freelance writing career. We were basically depending on your income, and your income had gone from supporting 2 people to supporting 1 person to now supporting 4 people.
Right.
So money was tight. And you were in that headspace of, I had this previous relationship where my partner spent needlessly. And I was in this headspace of, oh my gosh, we don't have enough money and I'm not earning enough and we need to at least have food. If we have nothing else, we need to have food. Yeah. And so it's strange because we did not fundamentally disagree on the reality of you need to buy groceries.
Yeah.
We disagreed with the approach.
Yes. And you mentioned that last night because I'd kind of forgotten about that. It was funny because, we disagreed and we were arguing and,
very sharp with one another.
We are both very strong-headed people
and sarcastic. So
Yes.
we don't. I mean, we don't get mean and down and dirty with one another, but the remarks are very cutting. Like,
Yeah.
we will find your weak spot.
And yeah, we were, we were rather vehement with each other.
And
But the funny thing was, like you mentioned, we were coming at it from different sides, but we were on the same page
we
ultimately.
ultimately wanted the same thing. We just didn't agree on the method to get there.
Yes.
And most of the arguments we've had over our relationship since that first one have been that way. It's almost never that we fundamentally disagree. It's sometimes we're arguing because we're both stressed and we're actually saying the same thing. The tone is just different, or the word choice is different. Now, in this case, some people might be saying, okay, so you argue you're DS, you're Dom, I'm sub. How does that work? Well, part of it is our philosophy is I have an opinion in this relationship no matter what my role is.
Correct.
So I will watch how I speak because our power exchange is predicated on the he's in charge. I can disagree, but I will do it respectfully. It does help that neither of us sort of fights dirty with one another. We don't get mean with each other.
We don't.
We keep it respectful.
We don't name call.
No.
We don't bring up things from the past.
No. And yeah, the argument we're having today is about the argument we're having today. We did that even then. Nothing from anything we might have been unhappy about in the past comes into it. We will bring up our past, though. I tend to be fairly introspective. You're pretty introspective.
Yes.
And I will call him on something. I'll say, wait, my name is not fill in the blank with ex-wife here, because sometimes I know that his reaction isn't about me, it's about memories. We call those bad tapes.
Correct.
We did a podcast episode on that. I'll link to that below. And that can impact how you move through life, but also how you interact, good and bad, with a partner. And that for us is where the few times we argue and we disagree, our bad tapes will come out. I will have to remind myself, you are not dealing with your ex-husband here. John Brownstone is a fundamentally different human being. And sometimes I have to remind John Brownstone
of the same in reverse.
I'm not your ex-wife.
Yeah.
But I am allowed to disagree. I'm allowed to voice my disagreement. I choose, as part of our dynamic, I will stay respectful. But when we negotiated our dynamic all those years ago, that was something we both agreed to, that we would both be respectful of the other.
Yes.
That was in the initial agreement.
Especially for me, I was in a relationship where respect was just not,
Right.
From many different angles. And that was one of the things I told her. I said, I know we're going to disagree. We are going to have arguments. We're human. And you can say whatever you want to say as long as it is done with respect.
And you promised me the same thing in return. It was
Correct.
not a one-way, I have to be
No,
respectful,
no.
he gets to be a jackass. No,
No.
that's not how this works. Now, I can tell you from that first argument through every argument we've ever had, our arguments tend to come out in times of very high stress. They're almost always about money. I can think of one, maybe two times since we've been together that we yelled at each other. We don't actually even usually yell. We get sharp. We get, quick-tempered, but we don't usually yell. We have yelled before. It's always about money. My feeling is almost always the same. It is a physical pain. One, because I, like many people, I don't like conflict. I actively avoid it. There are many reasons for that. I need to talk about that with my therapist. Thank you. But also, I do recognize my role. He is in control, and here I am disagreeing with him and telling him on some level, even on a minor level, I think he's wrong. In this case, this was about my need to feel secure in this new life that we're building. New apartment, new place. I've just ripped my kids away from, the home that they've known for 2 or 3 years, taking a massive leap of faith on a relationship that seemed to have worked out. Thank you very much. And what I needed to feel like I had solid ground underneath me was to know that my refrigerator was full, because that was a point of insecurity for me, financial insecurity. And once I could help you see that, then you kind of relented. Now you're like me. You're like, oh, I love it when the refrigerator's full. Same. So that was part of it. But every argument we have, there's a physical hurt, because I don't want to disappoint you. I don't want
Right.
to be disappointed by you. But and there have been times, I think on very minor things, that maybe I just didn't speak up because ultimately I decided it was not important. But I am not the submissive who thinks that because you're the dominant, I can never speak up. If I disagree, I disagree. And sometimes we don't disagree to the point of an argument, of a flat out, like we're really mad at one another. Sometimes it's just like a minor, we'll have to agree to disagree there. I just don't see it that way. And we are able to have those kinds of conversations even now.
Right.
But when it gets to the point where I know I'm angry with you and I know you're angry with me, and we're speaking at each other and not to each other, like that first one, it's a sharp pain in my chest. It's like my heart's breaking. I hate it. It stresses me out. It makes me cry. There's a little bit of fear, not fear that something bad will happen, but what does this mean? The biggest point for me as a submissive is I know it's safe to speak up and I'm willing to speak up. I choose how I speak up based on our power exchange, except there was more recently an argument where I was screaming, and I don't scream. That's just not my nature. And that was the moment I screamed. But that first one, it was very sharp. It was I felt like I couldn't catch my breath. It made me very anxious.
Yeah.
But I still said what I needed to say because I knew I could. I knew that was allowed. It was important to me. We have long moved through this power exchange knowing that we both have a place to speak, and our opinions and our thoughts are valued by the other.
Yeah.
Even when we disagree. But that doesn't mean it doesn't break my heart when I can't just go, yes, Daddy, and give you exactly what you want. If I can, if it's truly just not that big a deal to me, then I will. It's easy. I'm a great compromiser, but sometimes it's just not. And that first time, and some people out there are going to totally get it. You're going to be like, oh my God, yeah, you have to have a full fridge and freezer. You have to have plenty of food. You've probably known financial insecurity. You understand that. And it was fundamentally important. It was important to me as a mother. And that is another time I will absolutely speak up, regardless of our power exchange, because if it's important to me as a mother and taking care of the kids, I'm going to say something. And it was important to me as setting the boundaries of what this relationship was going to be and who we were and what we were going to do and, what I needed to be happy.
Right.
At the same time, understanding that what you need to be happy.
For me, I think, especially afterwards, in that moment, I realized I was not at my best.
Yeah, that's when our arguments happen too.
Yeah, I was not at my best, and I think what struck me the most at that time was like, wow, I was not being a good leader. And what I had to really consciously work on after that was remembering that this is a totally different relationship from what I had prior. And before we entered into any kind of discussion on anything, I had to very consciously remind myself that this is a totally different person, totally different situation. We have different things in place, and the outcome is not going to be the same.
No. Especially if we make different choices as
Right.
well. Because it's almost never, there are situations, but it's almost never just one person's fault if a relationship falls apart, assuming it falls apart in a not scary, bad way. It takes two for that. And, being able to recognize the responsibility that we each had to each other and how we wanted our relationship to be fundamentally different and how we wanted to move through our power exchange.
Right.
I think that it is helpful that you take that responsibility so seriously. Like one of your biggest fears is that you'll go power mad and
yes,
be corrupted by your own power. And he's with me, and I'm bringing down to earth in about 2 seconds. Don't worry. not a problem there. But I think being able to handle a disagreement and hearing me disagree with you and say, I think you're wrong. I think there's a better way. I don't want to do that just because you want to do that. Over time, though, I have found that if I don't express when I'm upset with you or I disagree with you, it does lead to resentment. Our last argument was right after we moved to where we live now. And we were stressed about money and we were stressed about the move. It was a very stressful moment, as moves usually are. And I could feel the resentment building because I think there had just been things I hadn't said that should have been said. Small disagreements that would have been calm discussions.
Yeah.
But I just kind of let it slide. No big deal. We'll deal with it later. And here we were, it all bubbled up and I'm now yelling and you're yelling and we're not talking to one another and I'm crying, just sobbing. And I'm hurt and I'm angry, and it's not at that moment because of the resentment. It wasn't about what I was upset with you over or disagreed with you about. It was about how I felt about all these other times. And I did have that moment of, oh, I see how it is. Because I'm the submissive, I'm supposed to always give up what I think and what I want. And that is not true, but it is absolutely easy to let yourself get into that mindset. Even if your partner doesn't think it, you don't think that at all. Yeah. But there are moments I will kind of go, it's fine, until it's not fine anymore. Yeah. And now I'm dealing with resentment that I could have prevented if I had just said what I needed to say. It helps, I think, in our relationship that very first real disagreement, and we just were on two sides of a conversation, same side of the issue, just different ways of approaching it. Having the freedom and realizing I was safe to do that and that you could accept that, even if you didn't like it, even if we were fussing at one another, that set the stage. If that first time you had shut me down, or if you had pulled that, well, I'm the dominant, we do what I want. No.
Things would have been very different, yeah.
Let me say, that is a sexy thing in your kinky fuckery. That is a cool thing in a consensual moment where
during
it's like,
a negotiated scene, yes.
But you are disagreeing on something fundamental to your relationship or your life. No, there is no big D card. Had you done that in that first one, I don't know where we would be today. But you allow, and I'm sure it helps that I approach arguments in a certain way that speak to you. And so that we very rarely are not hearing one another. It happens. Like I said, it does happen. But that first argument, it broke my heart because we had been together at that point basically a year and a half and had never actually argued. True. We never really disagreed. If one of us disagreed, the other would say, well, this is why I feel this way. And we would go, oh, I see it. And we would be on board. We were just in sync with one another on a really serious level. And this was the first time we just weren't. We were. We worked it through. We talked it out. Right. We have learned, I think we did this at the time, but we do this better now. We gave each other space.
Yes.
And we retreated to opposite corners to just breathe.
That was the other thing that we came away from that with. It was like, I think sometimes when we get to a certain point, we need to just step back and let things,
I'm not good at that. I want to resolve things right then. I want it off my plate. I don't want to be worried about it anymore. I've gotten better at that. You make me do that. Yeah. Because in that moment, you went, I'm not talking about this anymore. Right. Not right now. I need to calm down.
Not that we're forgetting about it or just sweeping it under the rug. I think we just need time to level our emotions on it. And then we come back and we work through it.
And from that first time, I am now sometimes the one who says, we're not having this conversation right now. Yeah. I need you to go take a breath. I'm going to go take a breath. Let's come back. And I was not that type of person in previous relationships. If I was angry, which it took a while for me to get to that point, because like I said, I would forgive and go, oh, it's fine, until resentment built. And by the time I was ready to talk about it, we were talking about it. And so in that first argument, that did set the stage for this is how we're going to handle it. If we can't, in a few moments, sort of help the other understand our perspective and it dies down, then we have to go to our separate corners and come back and talk when we're feeling calmer about it.
But see, I think what helped in that aspect was that you gained a certain level of trust from me because you realized that, when he says, we just need to calm down and we will talk about this, you realize that, oh yeah, he does mean that.
Right. Exactly. And another level of trust was built because, you, like I said, you didn't pull the big D card. You didn't tell me that it was your way or the highway because you were the dominant. You gave me the space to communicate what I was thinking. I didn't always do it well. Sometimes, I think we've had this conversation before on like the live stream and the podcast episodes about how I can be right in the argument. But if I was rude or not part of my role and outside of our power exchange in my tone and my delivery, we will settle the argument. I will be declared the winner, which we don't really do because I don't think that's healthy. But we know that I got what I wanted out of that. And then at some point later, somebody has to deal with the fact that she was rude in the power exchange dynamic.
Yes. Yes.
So there's two things going on there that can be true at the same time. You can be right in the argument and have not done something that you negotiated in your dynamic. In being a person that I could disagree with, that you could handle me disagreeing with you, you could handle me sometimes being rude, sometimes being loud, some of the things that happen in an argument. By being that person, I learned I could trust you with the negative. It's one thing to trust each other when it's always been good, where you negotiated the scene and the scene went well. You negotiated this part of your power exchange and you're both honoring that. That's a level of trust that you build. There's another level of trust in the power exchange when you fundamentally disagree with one another, you're at each other's throats, you're not your best, and you can work through it, and you continue to be the people that you are when things are good. Maybe you're louder about it, maybe you're a little angrier about it, but you did not abuse your power. I did not try to manipulate the situation.
Right.
We stayed to a certain extent within our dynamic, but we transcended that dynamic because we're two people trying to navigate a relationship. Right. And that's what DS is. The power exchange is great, but you're two people trying to navigate a relationship. And that deepened my trust and confidence in you. And so then I knew it was safe to be able to disagree with you in the future. And that's why, even though our arguments and disagreements are relatively few and far between, we can have them, and we have to work through them. There have been nights where we have actually even gone to bed angry at one another and had to deal with it the next day. Those are rough. I don't love any of that.
I don't like that either.
But the way we decide to handle these things, by talking about it, by going to our separate corners, by being respectful of one another, by, once we're calm, really hearing the other person, I think it makes us stronger over time.
Yeah, I believe it's because, one, people may say, oh, but you're a DS couple. How could you argue? Yes, we are a DS couple, but we are also human beings. And I don't care who you are, what kind of relationship you have. No relationship is perfect. If someone tells you that they never argue,
I'm going to ask about resentment. I'm going to ask what you're mad about that you hadn't said.
Exactly. Any couple, regardless of how good they get along or what their relationship is like, you're going to argue at some point. There is going to be some kind of argument. It's how you handle it. All right. For me, I come away from it, especially that first time, it was a growing experience for me. It was a learning experience for me that this can be different. This is going to happen, but it can be handled in a very different way, and it can walk away from it being better.
Yes, and I think that that's part of it. I think that one of the hardest things to do in relationships is to stop repeating old patterns. I mean, you just you kind of hardwire yourself to just do the same thing you've always done. To slip
into that old...
Right. And especially if this is your first power exchange, maybe it's a partner you've had for a long time, but it's your first time you're ever doing a power exchange, you've already fundamentally changed your relationship style. That means you can change other things too. It's not easy. It's not going to happen quickly, but it is possible. So you can actively choose and say, we're not going to do this the way we've been doing this.
Right.
We're going to do this differently and see if we can make it better. And you're going to learn from it every time. Every time we argue, every time we disagree and we're vocal about that disagreement, it's a learning opportunity. I still feel a physical pain when we disagree, when I know you're angry at me, when I know I'm angry at you. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I hate it for I think, legitimate reasons, and I hate it for reasons I really should talk to my therapist about. But I am not afraid to disagree.
Yeah.
Because I know that you're going to listen to me. I know that you're going to honor and respect my opinion, even if you disagree with it, even if you think I'm wrong. I know that we will come out on the other side having figured it out.
Yes.
We are fortunate. Most of the times we argue, we are saying the same thing in a different way. We actually
Yeah.
want the exact same outcome. We are arguing about how to get to that outcome.
The road to take, yes.
And
yes.
I have found that when we take that break and we come back and calm down, we're either able to compromise and find the middle ground, or almost evenly, one of us sees the other's perspective now that we're calm. I promise you, I want more groceries than I probably know how to handle. We'll just freeze it all. It's fine. I won that one because we make sure we always have enough, and I feel secure from that.
Right.
We don't spend too much. We don't buy extravagantly. We don't buy things we're not going to eat and we don't need. It's not
Correct.
wasteful, which was his fear. And so we found the middle ground. And if you're somehow, tallying the score, did I win that one? I guess. But all that we were able to do from every argument that we've ever had is we learn how to see the other's perspective and figure out where each of us can bend and shift and give a little bit. And arguments may be few and far between, and they suck and they hurt every time. And I have to overcome my own submissive nature with him sometimes to say something, I have to actively do that. But we are always better for it when we're done.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was a very long-winded explanation of our first disagreement and argument. I don't know if anybody learned anything, but just so you know, submissives get to have opinions. You will argue. It's all about how you handle it. I would
It
say
happens.
That if you are interested in what we've said in the past about arguments and disagreements, or the concept we talked about of bad tapes, those are linked below. Yeah. They're podcast episodes. There's not a video of them at this point. If I can figure out how to have that conversation in a shorter video, maybe we'll do a video on it. But until then, we have podcast episodes.
Yeah.
And that's it for us this time. If you enjoyed this video, learned something new, we amused you in some way, give us a thumbs up. Maybe subscribe if you haven't already.
And hit the notification bell to get notifications of when we upload new content.
You do you, boo-boo. And if you really, really like what we did and want to help us do more of it and get some sneak peeks and do some behind-the-scenes kind of stuff, join us on Patreon at patreon.com/KillerLords. Bye.